let's say that I had a color swatch. And I wanted to match it. So this cadmium orange out of the tube is not going to match this shaving cream color, right? And indeed it doesn't. If I place it down on my paper, I see that it does not. If I take this next step as my cad yellow has a little bit of orange in it, or a little bit of red. It's not as bright as my Hansa yellow, right? But it's much, much brighter. It's totally reading yellow up against that. So you may notice also, now that I've got cad orange and cad yellow next to my shaving cream tube, this shaving cream tube is reading as a yellow orange, right? So since these two were next to each other on the color wheel, have you lined your paints up on your color wheel, by the way? I put mine in a box so that I can kind of keep them always on the color wheel, and then I can put them away like that. It's not a color wheel, it's actually a stripe, right? So if the orange goes here and this cad yellow goes here, then this loops around this way and back up this way, right? So here's my red and here's my orange and here's my green and here's my blue. So my wheel goes here and then my browns are over off to the side with my black and white to the side, okay? So it might be useful for you to set something up, even a plate, you know, if you want to take like a paper plate or something and set all your stuff up around. I don't know if you're able to leave your setup the way you like it. All right, so to match this, I'm gonna mix me some orange and some yellow, right? I think I am gonna get a paint palette here. I don't wanna keep mixing on the paper because the paper's pulling the water out of my paint and it's drying up really quickly. All right, so I'm going to take my palette knife. I'm going to put out a dab of orange, and I can't find my yellow now. What do I do with my yellow tube? Oh, here it is right here. Just turned over to face down. Put my yellow over on the other side a little bit further away. I'm going to mix orange into yellow because yellow's lighter in terms of value, right? So dip my palette knife in the orange, pull a little bit of yellow over, and start to mix up a color. I want to get it mixed good and evenly. Then I want to take my palette knife and I want to hold it on top of my shaving cream and squint at it. And I got pretty close in the first shot. That's amazing. This must be a pretty basic kind of color, right? Now, if I look closely, however, actually I can, on this thing, I can just put a dab of paint, right? When that paint dries, if I can still see it, can you guys see that dab of paint on there? Would you say that that's lighter or darker than the shaving cream tube? A little bit lighter, isn't it? Yeah. Just a little bit lighter. All right, so I'm going to mix a little bit more orange into it. So the first step of my color mixing thinking is hue. What colors make orange, right? What color makes this yellow orange? Maybe I want to, abstracting this, they say words are an abstraction, right? So if I name this and I say, what is this color? I might call it orange, right? But then if I put it next to this and I say this is orange, then I'm going to say, oh, it's yellow orange, right? Or maybe I squeezed out some orange from my page and I'm like, okay, well, this is orange. That's not orange. That's, right? So even naming it has already jumped over all of that intellectual thinking about how colors are mixed and stuff. And I just say, oh, it looks like a yellowy orange. Well, that's telling me how to mix it, isn't it? Right? So even though I have all these nuances of green here, one might say that all of these swatches here are green, right? So this one I would say is a blue-green or a teal. That's going to tell me I need to mix blue and green to get to this, right? This one has a lot more yellow in it than that one, right? So when I say color is relative, sometimes I'm saying this one doesn't have so much blue, right? It's by comparison to this one that I understand this one needs yellow, right? Now, I may not be able to just mix blue and green and get any of these colors, or I'm sorry, yellow and blue and get these colors, right? I'm also going to have to, this is very desaturated, right? Now this color here is a warmer green than this color here. This almost looks like it has some red in it, right? I don't think this is just blue and yellow. I think this is starting to turn a little bit brown. And browns are mixed. Should we do red, yellow, and blue? Let's do a mix of red, yellow, and blue. Do you have an orange paint? Take a blue paint, mix a complement, right? So when I said black is a mixture of red, yellow, and blue, black is actually, when you want to mix blacks, there's 3 ways you could do it. You can mix red and green, you can mix orange and blue, you can mix yellow and purple. Now when I do that, the likelihood is that I'm going to get some kind of a brown. But look what happened right here. I got black right away when I mixed cobalt blue into my orange. Okay, so that's a dot of cobalt blue and just mixed orange into it, and I got black. Now, is it really black? I can spread it out or thin it out, and I might find that it's kind of a brownish something something. But let's see what happens if I mix a red and a green and how those blacks are different. I think I'm going to use my phthalo green because it's dark, and that gets me really close to black already, right? Am I cheating? Let's see what happens if I mix permanent green light. I now have 2 greens on my palette. I'm going to try cadmium and naphthol. So I'm going to put naphthol red on my palette. I'm actually going to put that down twice. And I'm going to put cadmium twice because I want to see what happens. Color theory is only theory, right? Color practice is what we're doing now, right? There's all of these kind of intellectual conversations that we can have until we turn blue. But if you haven't actually got your paints out and started squeezing them on the palette and stirring them up, then it's all just theory, right? And you learn by doing when you're painting. So it's really important for you guys to do this with me. All right, so I'm going to take the greens that I laid down. Also, because my camera is not, you know, I mean, my light here and then going through the camera and then getting onto your screen, it's like 3 times removed in terms of color by the time you're looking at it. So I'm happy to see you guys mixing paint and doing this with me because you're actually seeing on your paper true color and what really happens. Naphthol and cadmium, when I squeeze them out of the tube, look the same, right? But maybe we should like try mixing them into a yellow and see how they differ, or mix them into a white and see how they differ, right? First, I'm going to mix into green because I'm trying to make a black. Should I mix red into green or green into red? These, I don't think it's going to matter. Where I use the permanent green, if I squint at those, they're about the same value. They're about the same light to dark. Whereas my phthalo green, I don't even have to squint at them. I can just see that the phthalo green is much darker, right? So I'm going to go green into red for that one. I now have two different blacks on my page, and you're not going to see this as easily in the camera as you are going to see it in your page mixed, right? So when you mix red and you get down to a black, and you mix orange and you get down to a black, then suddenly you start seeing, oh, this is a red-based black. This is a blue-based black. This is an orange-based black. This is a warmer black or a cooler black. Okay, I can't actually get a black with the permanent green and the red, but I'm getting quite a dark greenish gray. Keep wiping your palette knife off so that you can then do a clean experiment next time. Maybe dip it in the water and wipe it on a tissue so that you have, the edges don't have paint in them. So the blacks that we buy from the store, when we tint them, we get a gray, right? But you're going to start to notice whether it's a warm gray or a cool gray. So take your lamp black, after you've mixed some blacks with oranges and reds and greens and stuff like that, and put a dab of lamp black on your page. And then put a dab of white for each one of the blacks that you've mixed. So this looked really black when I mixed it. When I mixed white into it, it turned into an army sage green when I mixed the white. I'm getting a really neutral sage. This feels like more of a neutral, but it's still quite green, which is interesting because I mixed blue with orange, but I guess I had to do a lot of blue in there to get me down to the black looking thing. But as I mix white with it, I noticed that it's kind of a sagey green too. It's a different kind of sagey green. So when somebody says sage, which sage are you talking about, right? Do you want this kind of sage over here? Or do you want this? This is more of a minty kind of sage, right? It's got more blue in it. They're all turning into sort of a greenish color when I tint them. It's really hard to get a neutral, really black when you mix your own blacks. But guess what? That's the point. So remember how we said your mistakes and your humanity comes into it and makes it more interesting? If you do a painting where you've mixed the blacks, it's gonna have a different dynamic to it than if you always use lamp black every time you open up, you know, every time you say, oh, I want black. I had one class where a teacher wouldn't let us use black at all. We had to mix our own blacks every time. And I think it's worth doing. Now with this one was quite red, my black. And I put some more green into it. So I mixed my own black, which was red and black, and I got this really warm black. Then I mixed a little more green into it, and now I'm getting something that looks a lot like this over here, which is, this is my lamp black mix. So I actually am able to get a very, very neutral gray by mixing red and green. If you look here, I was trying to match this paint swatch that I have, right? So I started with alizarin, and by the way, I'm taking notes as I work, right? It's a good idea. So I did alizarin and I added white to it because my first step is to look at this and do hue. So hue, it looks like pink, which is red and white, right? So I took red, I desaturated it, and I tinted it with white, and I got this color here. And then I held this over top of it, and I see that this is a little bit more orange, right? I didn't mix orange in, I actually mixed yellow because I already had so much red, right? Now you can choose if you're gonna mix red or orange or whatever it is you wanna do, right? Either one might have gotten me to this point, but after mixing yellow, I got to this with cad yellow. And then I hold this up to it, but I went too far. This now is more orange than this swatch, okay? So what I did was I took this cad yellow and I went back to this pink and I mixed them together. So this is a mixture of this and this. I didn't look at this and say, oh, I went too orange, so it needs to be more red and add more red, because then I'm going way too far in either direction. It's really a nuance between these two, so I kind of mixed those two up again. Or I took the brush that was dirty with this orangey thing and I mixed it into this white, and then I got something that I'm pretty happy with here, right? When I painted it onto this guy, it's drying now. I can still see a smudge there, but it looks pretty darn close to what I'm doing, right? Part of the reason I can see the smudge also is because the texture of the paint is soft and the card is a little bit shiny. All right, so that's another issue with your stuffed animal or your t-shirt versus your magazine.